welcome today. We have quite an agenda. We were waiting just a few minutes. We wanted to make sure that we have a quorum, and we indeed do have a quorum. We have quite a few things to vote on. So that has now been confirmed. And first I would like to quickly proceed to the first item, the approval of the minutes of the April 11th meeting. Do I hear any corrections for the minutes? Anybody have a correction? No, so let's vote. All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. And they are so approved. We go to the second point, which is the State of the University Address by our interim president, Robert Berdahl.
Thank you, Robert. Well, it's nice to be back here and to see you all again. I don't have a lot of remarks to make here today with regard to the State of the Union Address, but I do want to say a few things because I think this has been, at least for me, and I hope for you, a fairly remarkable 4 months so far, and a fairly unusual one. And the university has achieved during this period, because of the excellence of our faculty, a number of, I think, remarkable awards and achievements that we should note here as our academic year draws to a close. And so I want to convey something about the measures of strength that I think this university continues to manifest in all of its dimensions. Consider, for example, that biologist Eric Selker, a member of the Institute of Molecular Biology, has recently been elected to the National Academy of Sciences, one of the highest honors given to any scientist in the United States. Kathy Cashman, a professor of geology, has been elected to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. And this award recognizes some of the most accomplished scholars, scientists, artists, and national leaders in many categories. And Kathy is recognized for her research in volcanology and is elected with a class at the American Academy that includes others like Hillary Rodham Clinton, Clint Eastwood, and Paul McCartney. Neuroscientist Chris Neal was named a Searle Scholar, one of just 15 researchers nationwide to receive such an award, and the recipient of $300,000 in support of his research work. And our students have been honored in unprecedented numbers as well. Undergraduates Amy Atwater, Ofer Cornfield, Brianna McCourse are named Goldwater Scholars for the 2012-2013 academic year, winning the nation's premier undergraduate scholarship award for the natural sciences, mathematics, and engineering, and keeping the university on pace with leading universities nationwide, including Harvard, Princeton, Stanford, Michigan, University of California, Berkeley, each of which had only 2 students recognized compared with the 3 from Oregon. So that's good company. Undergraduate Savani Miller was one of just 100 undergraduate students from around the United States to receive the Ernest F. Hollings Scholarship for the 2012-2013 academic year, offered through the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. And I'd like to add another note of institutional pride. Not only did our university tie with UCLA for the largest number of Gilman scholarships west of the Mississippi, 3 of our 7 scholarships went to students in our university's outstanding Pathway Oregon program. This program that directly provides access to Oregonians who are not able to afford college, but for whom college is possible because of this Pathway program. This program, I think, is a remarkable and indeed a model program created by this university. Our students are getting outstanding educations from great teachers and mentors and advisors. Our retention rate from freshman to sophomore year is an all-time high of 86%. We are poised to graduate 3,251 graduates this June. This reflects our strongest four-year graduation rate ever and is a 15% increase over last year. We are a destination point for new students from across the country who want to join us next fall. Further, our incoming students have remarkable academic profiles. They can compete with the very best universities in the country. Not only are the aggregate academic profiles the strongest we've ever seen, we have some individual stories of personal stories that are really quite remarkable. To point out just a couple of them, the Haley Pratt Stibich, a young woman from Springfield who will be joining our student body next year. Haley has been a student within our faculty-led SAIL program, Summer Academy to Inspire Learning program, and has just won the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation scholarship. She could go to any university in the country, and she's chosen to join us to study physics here at the university. I think this is a tribute to the quality that the SAIL program is providing and the help that it assists to young students who might otherwise not be eligible or qualified to come to universities and who are brought up to high standards by that program. I'd like to mention the mentoring support of Professor Raghu Parthasarathi. I hope I've pronounced that right. The role that he played in Haley's decision to join us. So I would say life is very good at the university, and we have a lot to be proud of and to be pleased about. I want to give you just a brief update on the presidential search. I think the search is proceeding on time. We're pretty well where we expected to be at this point in the process, and if things go smoothly going forward, there will be I think the opportunity for the board to appoint a new president sometime in June, and it is clearly my expectation that that person will be on board by September 15th, when I'll be leaving. And I think that those of us who have had a chance to either know or to review the resumes of the candidates recognize that there's some very, very fine candidates in the list. So I'm very pleased that the search is going well, and we hope that from here on out, which of course becomes the dicier period of a search, that it is successfully completed as well. We also have a whole array of new opportunities as well as challenges with the recognition that the university has extended to United Academics, and the challenges that dealing with the negotiations with a new union formed on our campus will present. I think that we're committed, I know we're committed as a university to moving forward as best we can to complete negotiations in as fast a process as possible to secure a contract with the union. We're committed to being really fair and committed to really a process of negotiation that is will result in an outcome that we all want to see. So these are the issues that we're dealing with. Let me simply add that as I think about the things that I have been really focused on and spending my time on, clearly the presidential search has been on my mind. But most of my effort in the last several weeks have been related to the governance issue of the university. I think there's no single thing that is more important for this university to achieve in its near future there's nothing more important than achieving an institutional board. for the university. Institutional boards are very different in their posture and in their view of themselves than our system boards. System boards tend to view their responsibilities largely as oversight, as watchdogs, focusing on the issues related to accountability and their fiduciary responsibilities for the university. An institutional board that's properly conceived and properly constructed, committed to the university, I think can be a very, very potent factor in developing excellence in the university. It grants legitimacy to our decisions. It isn't simply a watchdog or an oversight board. It is a board that also can be an advocacy board. It is a board closer to the institution that knows the institution. More importantly, perhaps, given our recent history, it is a board that is familiar enough with the achievements of a president to be able to evaluate the president by consulting all the constituencies of the university and not simply acting on the recommendations of a chancellor or of a state board. So I think it's very important for the future of this university, and I think it's extremely important to our donors with whom I have been meeting on a steady and regular basis, that this be achieved. It will inspire confidence, I think, of that community. And if we are able to achieve that goal of an institutional board, I think we will see the support coming from the private sector for this university that will move us to a new level. And so this is something I think is important. I hope you agree as we move forward, and that's clearly something that we've been focusing on. So with that, let me close my State of the University remarks, such as they are, and invite questions. Frank?
You mentioned university governance. I thought you might say something about interactions between faculty and president, and sometimes how they get garbled by lower-level administrators.
Well, I really hadn't thought of commenting on it quite in those terms, Frank. I don't know quite what you're referring to, but you know, administrations, I have to tell you, quite frankly, that I know there's a lot of criticism, and faculty, you know, are always quite free to criticize administrations. I'm aware of that. I've been an administrator for 25 years. I've taken my fair of shots. I've worked pretty well with senates in the past. I just received an award from the Berkeley Senate, the Clark Kerr Award for Distinguished Service. So I think that I want for us to be a university in which the shared governance between faculty and administration has as few bumps and difficulties as possible. But we won't always agree on everything. I hope that we can agree to disagree in a civil fashion. And that seems to me to be a central feature of universities, where disagreement and contested views are to be a matter of course and are, I think, the hallmark and the pride of universities.
Can I respond briefly to that?
Sure.
The Constitution was designed to provide exactly that kind of platform.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Comments? Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bob. And now we are coming up to several votes, and I'd like to ask all of those who have not signed in yet to please sign in. This is really important for our history. So did you sign in, David? Please sign in now, just before the votes. We want to make sure to have this. And I think I saw someone else Sit back there. Anybody else who came in and did not sign? It's just important for our history to make sure we have that on record. And the next point is the election of Senate President for 2012-2013, and John Bonine, the chair of the Nominating Committee, will announce the slate of candidates.
Thank you. John Bonine from the law school. I think the only day I've come to the Senate not wearing a tie. I think that our election is about to compete with the Greek government for short-term governing. What we have to do is elect somebody who will become president next year by action, but we don't elect the president, we elect the president-elect. So today we'll elect a president-elect who in 2 weeks will become the president. That will be a 2-week term for the president-elect. And the reason we're doing that is that we didn't manage to have a president-elect for this entire academic year. The nominating committee received one nomination for this position, which is Robert Keir, to continue in that position. The floor is now open for other nominations of anybody else who might like to be president for next year, or anybody who thinks somebody else should be president for next year. Now I'll revert to long ago time as an undergraduate in politics, in which I believe the proper motion, I hope that I don't violate procedure, is a motion that the nominations be closed, the rules be suspended, and the nominee be elected on a white ballot. That's what we used to do. So basically, I'd like a motion that the nominations be closed. I see a motion in a second. Any discussion? Okay, are we ready for the vote? No objection. All in favor of closing the nominations, please raise your hands. Thank you. At this point, we have one nominee. So if you are in favor, I don't think it's roll call, but maybe it is. Is it? Or is it just a normal? The nomination, the vote can simply be by hand raising. Is that correct? Okay, so I ask you to raise your hands if you agree to Robert Keir being president-elect for 2 weeks and becoming president for next year. I don't know if the minutes should reflect this, but I'm going to say there's about 6, 8, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, about 25, 26, 27 votes. Okay, we're done, I think. Am I right? Congratulations.
I don't know whether I should say thank you, but I will say thank you. And really looking forward to working together next year. As you know, we have quite an amazing year ahead of us, the remainder of this year and next year. I think Bob made quite a nice summary of what is facing us, including the arrival of a new president and the crafting of a collective bargaining agreement, and many other issues, including the 10th year review, which will be conducted by the Committee on Committees. And that will be a review of all university standing committees. So we have a lot of work to do together, and I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you so much for your confidence in me, and I will try to represent you in the very best way I possibly can. Thank you so much. The next point is 2 research policies for consideration and vote, and Beth Stormshak, Associate Vice President for Research, will be presenting these. What Beth has requested, and we of course honor the request of the policy owner, is to present both of them and then have discussion on both of them, and then we'll have a vote. They actually are kind of packaged in a pair the way that she has requested. Beth.
I have to stand up on my tiptoes to hit this microphone. I'm here to present the classified research policy and the proprietary research policy. A few months ago when I was here and we were to discuss the classified research policy, there were some concerns brought up about the policy from faculty. The primary concern was that the classified research policy, as it's written, only is focused on federally sponsored research. So the policy is to ensure that we have openness in research and that research is freely disseminated, but it only targeted the research that had been federally sponsored. So concerns that were brought up were that the policy did not address research that may be sponsored by industry. So in response to those concerns, we developed a companion policy, the Proprietary Research Policy, which does state that research that is sponsored by industry also should be freely disseminated and open and can be published. So the policies in that way are linked, in that the Proprietary Research Policy is a response to concerns brought up about the Classified Research Policy. And those are the two policies under discussion today.
So I'm going to
adjust this.
So you've all had an opportunity to review the policies, which are, of course, posted on our website, have been for some time now. So the next point is really to have a discussion if anybody would like to raise an issue about either of the policies. Frank. And today I'd like to remind everybody to please use the microphone. We actually need that for our official record. You won't be recorded on the video, which is our permanent record of the meeting, unless you speak into the microphone. And identify yourself first, please.
Yeah, Frank Stahl, Biology Emeritus. In a previous meeting, the proposal regarding federally classified research was laid aside, as Beth told us, pending a satisfactory solution to the unaddressed issues raised by the possibility of proprietary research. In 1965, a policy prohibiting all secret research on campus was established. And now the Senate has before it a proposal that prohibits proprietary research, that is research that is published only at the discretion of the funding agency. This continues existing policy, except for one disturbing paragraph entitled Exclusions and Special Situations, which says, in effect, the policy prohibiting research with restrictions on publication does not apply to testing services provided by university personnel under authorized university service agreements. I suppose some of you know what that means, but it isn't perfectly clear to me. No further explanation of these testing services is given in the policy proposal, apparently leaving the door open to an interpretation of unpublishable contracted research of any kind. Because unpublishable research raises far-reaching questions regarding the academic mission of our university, the proposal needs careful consideration. Unsettled questions include, what is the value of any, if any, to our university of research that cannot be published? Why should U of O want to do such research? Why should U of O personnel want to do research that cannot be published? Will students or faculty receive research credits for participation in such proprietary contracted research? Can collaborations with industry, which seems like a fine thing to do, be conducted without the imposition of limitations on publication? And the second set of issues is, if we are to allow unpublishable research to be carried out funded by industries, how will the U of O continue to prohibit federally classified research, where our reason for doing that has been such research is unpublishable? If we allow it for private industry and refuse it for the federal government, we look rather unpatriotic. Will any of the contract research carried out for companies be conducted in the service of a company whose research is federally classified? That is, will we be doing pass-through service and really carrying out federally funded research, but in the name of testing for a private company? Are the personnel performing proprietary research on our academic payroll? Are their positions fully funded by the contracts served? Or are they drawing upon funds derived from student tuition? If the latter, in what way are our students getting their money's worth if they can't even read what comes out of these testing services? These and other questions require a level of definition not provided in the submitted proposal. A brief internet search indicates that other universities do such fee-for-service research and have specified the conditions under which such research may be conducted. I give one example from a university that does fee-for-service work and forbids such work from having a proprietary component that is unpublishable, generating unpublishable data. For instance, they say no federal funding may be involved. I'm not recommending these necessarily. I'm just illustrating the kinds of concerns that have been raised on other campuses. Project must not involve human subjects, animals, biosafety issues, recombinant DNA, radioisotopes, or hazardous toxic substances. Project must not involve any proprietary data, either the sponsors or the universities. Project must provide a routine service at a fixed price available to any customer in the general public. No matching or cost sharing may be involved. No subcontracts or pass-through funding to another entity may be contemplated. Because of the complexity of the issue, I move, one, that the section in the proprietary research proposal called Exclusions and Special Situations be deleted from the proposed proprietary research policy, and hand in hand with that the Senate create an ad hoc committee to develop a policy for the conduct of, quote, testing services provided by university personnel under authorized university service agreements. Now, since Beth wants these two proposals handled as a unit, I want to make a brief remark regarding the classified research policy proposal. That policy proposal says, if all or any portion of ongoing research bears a federal security classification, the research will be terminated, if possible, within a reasonable amount of time. I can't imagine what the word "if possible" is doing there. Certainly, if given a reasonable amount of time to terminate the research, there's no reason why it shouldn't be terminated. If possible just opens the spooky issue of who decides possibility of something that already obviously is possible. So I would suggest the removal of the words "if possible." And I will move these as separate amendments when the time is right.
And Beth, would you like to make a response?
Well, I don't know if it would be helpful to hear more about what service contracts are. Is that?
Absolutely.
Then Chuck Williams is here from Technology Transfer. He oversees Technology Transfer, and he can provide people with a little bit more information about what service contracts at the university are and what they entail.
Hi, so I don't, through Tech Transfer Services, actually do the service agreements. Those are done across many different units in campus and have been done for decades here in different groups. Many of you might know of the Center for Advanced Material Characterization in Oregon, and that's the O down in on the underground. Lose me from time to time here. So they do quite a bit, and actually you can get the testing service agreement. It's up on the web. It's a one-pager. And what it really does is it provides testing instrumentation where they run analysis, collect data, and then send that out. And it's not just companies. It can also be foundations, other institutions. It also, we're not talking about testing services in the way that you would think just industry, but we provide testing services to organizations, states, counties, other schools. A lot of them have proprietary information for a variety of reasons, whether that's personal information, whether it's patient information, whether it's other types of things. Those testing service agreements are really pretty straightforward and have been in place for quite a while. So we're really talking about a pretty narrow defined type of thing. You can see it in counseling psychology or Center for Second Language gets testing from students in terms of their data. That goes back out as well, and that's not something that we retain. So it's not really a mystery in that way. And the reason that it was put into the exclusion section was just to be transparent about these testing service types of arrangements exist. They're part of extension. There are students, and many students, that get fantastic training as part of operating the instruments and getting to do the kinds of things to work with those data sets and put them through. So it's a fundamental part of what I would call our extension and service activities.
Do you see, I'll maybe ask a question just so we could clarify for everybody, do you see a conflict between what we're already doing, such as you know, and what Frank is saying? Where do you see the rub as being between what he is saying needs to be done in these policies and what we're already doing? Do you think it's covered?
I think it is, and I think those that passed through in the Science Council also felt comfortable with that.
Yes, everybody should know that before a policy comes to the Senate, according to our policy on policies, which, as you all know, we say this at every meeting, but it bears repeating, that it's an exhaustive process, and it goes through many, many layers of consideration and approval, and the Science Council has approved both of these policies, as has, at the end of the line, the provost. So now it's sent to the Senate, and we're going to be looking at these today as we are, and then voting, and then they will go to the president, who will sign or not, depending on what he wishes to do. So that's the process, and you've said you don't think there is a conflict. Does Frank have something to say to that? Do you think there is?
Perhaps the kind of proprietary research that's being done under the name of testing services would be found completely acceptable to our Senate and our faculty, and they may not want to make any changes in current practices. And then again, they may when they fully understand what they are, and I doubt if any of us do fully understand what they are. But secondly, the way the policy proposal is written, there is no indication of what it might become. And so not only do we need a separate proposal for such fee-for-service work that defines what is acceptable, but also forbids that which could become unacceptable and is not specified in this, that which could be unacceptable to us and is not specified in this policy proposal. That's why I'm suggesting that for expedience, we pass these policy proposals, the proprietary research one, with the exclusion deleted and with an ad hoc committee set up to create a separate policy regarding fee-for-service research and its possible proprietary aspects, as many other universities have done quite explicitly.
So let me just summarize. So what you're, in short, asking, you're saying that we could pass both of these policies today with that amendment that you mentioned, and then you would like an ad hoc committee to be formed that would consider fee for service, to put it briefly. Yes, so we can go ahead with the vote today, but you're going to propose an amendment, and then ad hoc committee for, that's what you're proposing, right? The minor one, if possible. So we can, I'm getting a hand from my parliamentarian here, excuse me. Right, yes, when we come to that point. I want to make sure that everybody has a chance to speak. I also would like to turn to our president and make sure that if he has anything he would like to say regarding this discussion, we, of course, would like to hear that. Great, thank you. Please.
Can I make one comment? With respect to the classified policy and the if possible language, I didn't draft that policy, and so I'm not keenly aware of why that language might exactly be in there. What may be the case is that if you look at, say, Stanford's or other policies where they say, yeah, we're not going to allow that, but there are occasions where a student or somebody else gets caught in the crossfire where a mistake has been made. And then does the institution want to have the flexibility to be able to make sure that student is able to finish and get to the end and not be impacted by a decision that was incorrectly made somewhere else in the process? So I think, I don't know, that that's kind of the direction that the drafters may have intended.
Yes, Frank?
If we leave out the words "if possible," then the text reads, "The research will be terminated within a reasonable amount of time." Anyone would agree that a reasonable amount of time would allow for a student caught in midstream to conclude his or her work. So we don't need the "if possible" in there. It's certainly possible, as written.
Yes, recognize John Bonine, please.
Thank you, John Bonine Law. My question is a simple procedural one. The speaker indicated he's not tied into the classified research policy, but presumably somebody here is. If Frank's proposal to remove "if possible" is accepted by the administration, then I would like to know that because it'll be very simple. We won't have any more discussion. If it's not acceptable, then perhaps they can say that. Just focusing on that one, instead of mixing the two together, we could just go to that and ask if there's any problem with removing "if possible." It's a simple drafting issue, I think.
If may I ask the president if he wishes to speak? Thank you, John.
Then I call the question on the motion to remove the words "if possible."
Yes. So do I hear a motion? Pardon? Well, we need that. So
I assume that Frank made a motion,
yeah,
if I'm incorrect.
Let's have the motion from Frank to reiterate, yes. Please, Frank.
Yes, I make a motion that we remove the words "if possible" from the classified research policy proposal.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Nay. Abstain. So passed. And then next, Frank, in terms of the process, what would you like to consider next?
I would like to remove the exclusion. I'll have it, find it here somewhere. I move that in the proprietary research policy proposal, the section, quote, "exclusions and special situations" be deleted, and that the Senate create an ad hoc committee to develop a policy proposal for the conduct of, quote, "testing services provided by university personnel under authorized university service agreements," unquote.
Do we have any discussion or objection? Randy? Oh, a second, please. We need to put it on the tables. Okay, it's on the table, so now we can discuss. Thank you, John.
Thank you. I think it's reasonable to have a definition of all terms in a policy that's up before us. And you've come up, and I think we should respect the fact that you've come up with a very good list of examples of things we consider to be legitimate. But that list is not a definition. I think terms within a well-crafted policy need definition. I also see a problem with passing this without that in it now. It might shut down existing programs until we clear this up. I would prefer that we just table the whole motion until this gets worked out. We cannot get caught up in productivity in terms of thinking of cranking out policies on a time basis. We need to make sure that every policy that comes out of here is crafted well.
Well, we should also take into account that it's gone through every layer of review, and if there is a way of honoring that as well. I mean, there is a dynamic at work here, and the Science Council has also, just to make that note, I'm not expressing a personal opinion, I'm just saying that is the process, and it has gone through a very extensive process. And we do, of course, on the Senate floor welcome these comments, but is there a way of moving forward and also accommodating this? Could it be folded into the fee for service or not really? It can't be done into the ad hoc committee that you're proposing.
I'd love to hear anything that would do that, but yeah. I think that every policy, especially a term that is that we have concerns about, needs to be defined in a policy coming out of this body.
Right. And you share Frank's concern?
I share the concern that having undefined terms in a policy can lead to unintended consequences. Mm-hmm. It's our job to to evolve good policy, and good policy has defined terms.
Any other comments or questions?
Again, could I ask
Please.
the administration explain if they have any problem with Frank's suggestion? It would be very efficient if they don't. If they do, then we can.
Yes, absolutely. We want to move forward if possible.
Bob, I proceeded the way I did because there's some encouragement in the air for the Senate to get some of these policy proposals passed. Had it not been for that encouragement, I would have argued for tabling of the proprietary research proposal until the issue of fee for service is straightened out. And that would require that we table also, keep the classified research proposal, because it is intended to replace, it was designed to replace the 1965 legislation, which forbids all secret research. And the classified research proposal does not do that. It forbids only federally classified research, not all secret research. So it would have involved holding up both of these policies. Now, I don't mind holding up both of these policies. The policy that we have written isn't bad, although some people find it ambiguous, because they take the word classified to mean federally classified, which is a modern day reading of a word that has long meant simply kept secret by some agency or other, where an agency can be Joe from down the street and classify things. So I think the question is, or an industry can classify things. So the issue is, do we want to go forward and push through both of these policy proposals? If we do, if the Senate would like to accomplish that, then I would argue that I would split my motion into two parts regarding the exclusion. One, that the exclusion part, the exceptions part, be deleted. That's one motion. The second motion is that the Senate create an ad hoc committee to elaborate a policy regarding such fee-for-service agreements. Now, if there is an interim period where somebody is made a bit uncomfortable, I would leave it to the administration to deal with that in whatever manner they have been dealing with it since 1965, when such research was declared illegal on this campus.
Yeah, John Bonine.
So again, I'm just trying to promote efficiency, and I think Frank's proposal as a seconder of it, I accept that splitting of the proposal so it becomes two motions. Secondly, just to mention to President Berdahl and perhaps to others who weren't here a couple years ago, we've done two things when we've had policies that we didn't think were as good as they could be. One is to adopt the whole new policy, but set up a committee to things. The other would be to do what Frank has suggested, which is to adopt it, as to amend it, and then adopt it, and then set up a committee. I personally think that Frank's proposal is fine, given his assertion that he would be maintaining status quo on the issue that he's proposing exclusion for. If that's not true, I would perhaps feel differently, but I think status quo is usually a fairly good position. So in that sense, I suggest we move to vote on the first, that is the amendment of the policy to exclude that sentence or paragraph. And if that's accepted, we then have to vote on the policy. And if that's accepted, we then have to vote on setting up a committee to see whether we want to put something in there. That would be my suggestion.
Any further?
I'm comfortable with that.
So Bob, you also feel that it makes sense to do this? Would you? I think that's clarification of the process. Great. So then let's go to the first matter of the exclusion, and to place that as a motion. Why don't you do that formally so that then we could vote on it?
The section, exclusions and special situations, be deleted from the proposed proprietary research policy.
Do I hear a second? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. I think we should do a hand count just for historical purpose. Okay, could all in favor raise their hands, please? All not in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Thank you. It so passes. And then the next point was to actually vote on the policies, both of them. So one at a time. Oh, yes. One at a time, definitely, but in sequence. And may I ask which one we should do first? I'm just asking for that advice. There may be a reason that you have that you would like to do them in sequence. The first on the agenda, I'm told by our parliamentarians, so the classified research policy. Please. Please.
The classified research policy proposal was held up because it didn't deal with proprietary research and opened the door. And it should still be held up for the same reason. Once we've settled the proprietary research question, then I have no objection at all to go ahead with that classified research one.
Okay.
So I would ask that since we are here dealing with two proposals,
Yes.
because the first one was deficient, that we deal with the deficiency, that is the proprietary research policy, pass that one, and then we can go ahead and pass the classified research
Okay,
policy.
so vote on the proprietary research first.
Please.
Any objections?
I don't, these are two separate policies. We have passed an amendment to the classified research policy to correct it in the fashion that you see fit.
Yes, but it hasn't been passed by the Senate, that policy. No.
And that's what's before the House, is it not?
No, The move was to put the classified research policy before the House first.
Because
I
it's on the
asked-
agenda first, the parliamentarian.
Because it was on
said
the
that.
agenda. And I'm objecting simply to the parliamentarian's ruling that the reason we have two policies before us. Right.
He gives advice
Will
and
you
then,
give me
yes.
contrary advice, please?
No. Yeah. The president can decide and will, but I want to make sure that we're basically in agreement because I don't want this to become some point later on. And I knew that there was a little rumbling out there, so I'm just trying to make sure we're all on the same page. Does anybody object to doing the proprietary research first? Please. Let's go forward together then. And do I hear a motion to vote on proprietary research? I can call for the vote. All in favor, say aye, please. All opposed, nay. May I ask just for the hands of the nays, we have one. Abstain? So passed. And now the classified research. All in favor, aye. What? Sorry, Frank.
Did we approve my amendment? Did I make a formal motion?
Yes.
I have.
Yes,
That
that was done. Yep.
Then let's do it.
Yep. Classified research, all in favor, say aye, please. All opposed, nay. Abstain? So passed. And now we go to the last point. Frank, would you please say that motion that you wish to put before the Senate about the committee fee for service?
Oh, yes.
Right.
I move that the Senate create an ad hoc committee to develop a policy governing fee-for-service testing and research on campus, and to bring it to the Senate as soon as they get it done.
Do I hear a second? Discussion, comments? So we can vote now. All in favor, aye. All opposed, nay. Abstain? So passed. Thank you so much. This is an example of participatory democracy. It moves in this way. It takes time, it takes effort, and you're all great to engage in this kind of discussion. I'm just so thrilled that we're on this road, and each of the meetings we have passed one or two policies now. So thank you. So next is the IAC motion regarding student membership. I just want to draw your attention to the actual process. First, there will be a history and summary of the motion by Glen Waddell from the IAC. Then comments from Interim President Berdahl. Then a report from the Committee on Committees, which I will give. And then discussion. And finally, Senate action. Glen Waddell.
Thanks, Rob. Glen Waddell, Economics. I'm currently acting chair of the IAC as our chair is on sabbatical. The motion we had before us in April is up here again in front of you. The University of Oregon Senate will add one more student member to the IAC. More specifically, the next page has the language that we intend to change. I won't read the current charge, but the proposed language would be that 5 of 6 students will be appointed through the ASUO and the president's office. 1 of the 6 students will be the ASUO president or designee. At least 1 of the 6 student members will be a varsity student athlete elected through the Student Athletic Advisory Committee. All student IAC members will serve 1-year terms and may serve up to 3 consecutive terms. I note up on the agenda that this is a history and summary. So the only add I will make to this is that you'll recall we had a fairly lengthy discussion at the April meeting where it was resolved that we would send this to the Committee on Committees. That meeting has taken place, meetings plural, one of which I was at and participated in. And before the vote would be taking place, I added to that discussion here in April, Interim President Berdahl's known objections to changing the charge. Given that Interim President Berdahl is here with us today, I think we might unpack that just a little bit more That's all I was planning to sort of provide in terms of history. So.
Thank you so much. The reason we had Glen begin was because he placed the motion, and also not everybody was here for the last meeting, so we wanted to begin with this framing information. And now Bob Berdahl will give his response.
Well, I guess I might very well defer to John Bonine's comment that all things being equal, you prefer to stay with the status quo. And that's sort of the position that I've taken on this issue from the beginning. In December, the ISA began consideration of proposals that it had before it, presented, I believe, by the chair of the IAC to modify the charge to the IAC. I indicated that I did not want committee charges to be changed, especially substantive changes that they were proposing. And I said in my letter or email to the chair of the IAC that I did not believe it was appropriate for an interim president to oversee changes in the committee structure that might very well saddle a successor president with changes that were proposed during an interim period that might very well be those that would not be satisfactory to a permanent president. And so I told Rob Kerr that the proposed changes were not acceptable, and I would not accept changes to any Senate committee during my interim presidency. There followed again an exchange about the issue of the charge to the IAC, and I repeated that in a second email, that my position was that we should not change committee charges during an interim presidency. Then the committee came forward with a proposed change in the composition of the committee, as you see before you. The committee is a very large committee, it has 18 members. It has 5 student members on it, including one who is the student body president. This would add a 6th student to the committee. I see no reason to change a committee of 18 members with 5 students. Students are adequately represented on such a committee. But again, I go back to my position that I do not think that I should approve changes in committee structure or committee charges during my interim presidency. I've held firm to that. I've indicated that to the IAC. And despite that urging at my part, they've come forward with this motion. I suggest that it be defeated.
Thank you so much for your comments. I'm going to go to the podium and give the report now. As requested, the Committee on Committees has reviewed the question as to whether to refer motion US 11/12-10, that is, adding the ASUO president to the IAC, back to the Senate for further discussion and a vote. Motion US 11/12-10 reads as follows. The Senate moves to add the ASUO president or designee as an ex officio voting member of the IAC effective immediately. Following a series of 3 discussions on April 24th, 25th, and 30th, the Committee on Committees voted in favor of returning motion US 11/12-10 to the Senate for further discussion and a vote. The vote tally was 5 in favor and 3 opposed, with no abstentions. Prior to the presentation of this report at our Senate meeting today, you have heard presentations by Glen Waddell, the chair designee of the IAC, and interim president Bob Berdahl regarding the background and history of motion US 11/12-10. I will not reiterate any of the information that they have imparted to us, but I will recount several issues that were raised during the 3 discussions that the Committee on Committees had regarding the future of this motion. First, and I want to state this very clearly and very strongly, the Committee on Committees does not want to act in a way that reflects badly on Interim President Berdahl. However, a majority of the committee members prefer that the ASUO president be added to the IAC now for the reasons presented by the student members of the IAC. Some committee members wondered why this rather small issue was so important to the university president, who has many more crucial issues to face. Moreover, one committee member commented that the change in membership would only change the percentage of student representation on the IAC from 29.4% to 33.3%. That is only a 3.9% change. However, it should be noted that several committee members felt that the issue at hand is a relatively important one for the president, and they strongly prefer folding it into the 10th year review of university standing committees that will be conducted by the Committee on Committees during the 2012-2013 academic year, rather than pursuing it at this time. Clearly, the Committee on Committees is divided on this matter, as reflected by the 5-3 vote. The committee sends motion US 11/12-10 back to the Senate for further discussion and a vote, with the hope that a decision is reached that will be helpful to the IAC now and in the future. And thus we come to the discussion part. Would anybody like to make a comment or ask questions? You may question any of the speakers prior to myself, so please. Frank.
Stahl Biology, I have a question that has nothing to do with the policy but with the text. The second sentence in those two look identical, and I find it very confusing. One of the 6 students will be the ASUO president or designee, appears in the current charge, and appears also in the proposed language. And I don't know if I were a voting senator, what on earth I'd be voting for.
Glen.
This was copied from text that was given to me. I'm not picking up on the confusion.
There are 5 students, and it says 1 of 6 students. So there are 5 students on the committee currently.
There are currently 5, right, above?
It says 1 of 6. That can't be possibly accurate.
I think it's a
Typo?
typo in the current IAC charge, isn't it? 1 of the 5 students. Isn't that correct, Ben? Yeah, Ben's on the committee, so I'm asking him.
It may well be in the current charge, I'm guessing, yeah.
So there should be one change, which is in the
Yeah,
current
no,
IAC
that's
charge.
that's certainly a correction that needs to be made. I was looking at the proposed language that Frank was flagging. I don't see a problem with that. I see.
I was flagging an inconsistency.
Okay, yeah, no, between the two of them, certainly. One of 5 students is likely the way the current charge should read.
Yeah, the current one. Does everybody see where that is? Let me point it out. I just want to make sure everybody sees it. This should be 1 of 5 students, and then down here it's 1 of 6. That's the change.
I just have one question for the speaker. I agree that makes more sense if it read that way, but does it in fact read that way? Do we have a copy of the current charge that's not susceptible to
Can we put
to
that
this
up on
problem?
the screen? We do. It's 5 students. Yeah, I'm not sure why this. Yes.
Chris, can you highlight the part, because I think that the entire other text
Is wrong.
is fantasy.
Yeah, the other text, I'm not sure why that was put up there. The 5 students shall be appointed through the ASUO and the President's office. At least 1 student member shall be a varsity student athlete. So here's what was before us, and we're not quite sure what that current IAC charge, where that's from, but it should read what the previous screen was showing us. And the proposed language is what you see correctly under proposed language. Can you put the could you split the screen and put one on one side? I don't know if we don't know how to do that yet. This is our second meeting here. It's the tech issues. Does everybody see what the difference is? Is that clear? Any questions? Ben, did you?
No, I didn't have a question. I was just clarifying because I think it was getting very overcomplicated. If you look at the current charge that it listed, it's just one sentence got mistakenly added. That's the only difference between that language and the current language. So that sentence that says 1 of 6 just was mistakenly added. It seems like the obvious.
Right.
Right.
Right. Well, what we really needed, to cut to the chase, we just needed the exact wording right up there on the screen. Frank's quite right, and then the proposed. And now we've got it. So further discussion. Yes, Bill.
Yeah, so I'm also puzzled why this has taken so much time. It seems like a really simple change. I'm on the IAC. My name is Bill Harbaugh from Economics. And I think part of the intent of this is to just increase student representation on the committee. For better or worse, our students care a lot about athletics. They spend a lot of money on it. They spend a lot of time on it. And this committee, in particular, should have representation from student athletes. At the moment, we have one track athlete on the committee. I think it would be really good if we could add a revenue sports athlete, and this charge, while it doesn't explicitly call for that, it increases the number of students and would make that, I think, more likely that somebody would get appointed and actually show up for the meetings. So I'm in favor of this, and I hope you will support it.
Yes, please.
As to the amount of time that this has taken or has been spent on it, it's taken very little time, and the time has all been consumed by the committee, not by me, because I simply said in the first week that I was in this job, I wasn't going to change committee assignments, committee charges, committee composition. The committee persisted in that, repeatedly coming back after having been told a second time and a third time that this was not something that I intended to do. So it is the committee that has dragged this out, that has expended this time on it. There's been no justification for saying there needs to be an additional student on this committee. This was done largely to test whether or not I would accept a change in the charge to the IAC. That's the basic issue that's here at stake. There are 5 students. That's a pretty significant representation. If the student body president wishes to be on this committee, the student body president has every right to appoint himself or herself. If a non-revenue sport athlete should be on this committee, the student ASUO that appoints the students can see to it that that's done. This is not a change that, it seems to me, is at this time necessary. If you want to make this next year, when you have a new president, fine. But I have made it clear that I'm not changing committee structure while I'm in the interim position, and I'm going to hold firm to that.
And just to give the background, because not everybody was here last time, that when this started after the first email exchange, where Bob made his position very clear, I met with him to understand the situation, and he said he wasn't going to change it. And then I explained our 10th year review and what that means, that all committees are engaged in that, and that it was supposed to have been completed by May of last year, couldn't be done for a variety of reasons, including the fact that not everybody submitted their report, and we have to have all the reports in order to do that, because the Committee on Committees has to balance the needs and the charges of the committees across the university. So I extended it to this year, May, this very month. But then with Bob saying he didn't want to change anything, which I understand, we put it another year into the future. So the deadline's now May 2013. I wanted to give you that background, that we have adjusted all of the deadlines in relationship to his wish not to act now on these matters. And it's just a background information that people need to know. Yes, John Bonine. Thanks.
Thank you. I didn't think this was a big deal last time. On the other hand, I have to say that this is an unusual meeting in a good sense, and that's the President of the University rarely comes and spends his time in the Senate. I'm not talking about this president, I'm talking about every president, to come here and engage us. I think that there may be occasions in which I will want to challenge the president on his status quo approach, but I don't know. I don't personally want to make this an issue on which we call a faculty assembly meeting after a veto on one additional member. It may be very important to those who propose it, but I would rather personally hold my fire for something that I think is perhaps may become more structurally important to the governance of the institution. And so for that reason, I will vote on the side of the president on this, regardless of whatever I might think are the merits of the issue.
Other comments, questions, please? Ben.
So I'll just comment. I'm Ben. I'm the student body president, and I'll comment on, again, as an IAC member, the reasons that the IAC pursued this from the beginning of the year, in the fall term when we elected our chair. This was a change that we wanted to increase student voice on the committee. It is a relatively small change, and again, Bill mentioned the stake of the students in the ASUO in particular and the work of the IAC. The ASUO does spend over $1.5 million annually in contributing to the athletic department revenue for our football ticket and basketball ticket programs. Those negotiations over the past several years have been very tough negotiations, and the ASUO has an increasing stake in communicating regularly with the athletic department and having access to information about the athletic department. It was an asset to students this year that we had such strong representation on the IAC. It really supported our efforts to obtain a fairer agreement with the athletic department, and having a representative from the ASUO on the committee, in addition to just expanding representation by one student, is a small but important change. It was not contentious within the IAC. It passed unanimously, and when it came to University Senate at our last meeting, it was also not contentious. The proposal that was made was to send it to the Committee on Committees as a procedural matter, and that was done. The Committee on Committees has approved it. This is a very important issue to students. It really comes down to expanding voice on the IAC and making sure that we have as strong and transparent as possible relationship with the athletic department. So I am also puzzled, as Bill said, at why this would be such a contentious issue, and I'm also would question the reasoning behind a veto on the basis that this is changing the structure of one committee, because I think that in the time that we have had an interim presidency, there have been much larger changes in policy at this university. The public records change is just one recent example, and so I would not understand why a change, like a massive change in our public records policy, would move forward, but adding a single student to a university committee that students fund in large part would not move forward at this time. So I would encourage the University Senate to pass this on the basis of the merits of the motion, and we cannot control what happens to this motion once it leaves the University Senate. We can only control how we feel about it and how we vote. So I would encourage the University Senate to support student voice and support our shared governance system by passing this motion.
Other comments and questions? Please.
Ron Mitchell, Political Science, and this may just be one of those things where if you're not in the game, you don't understand the terms. So I just want to make sure seems like if there's 5 people on it, and according to what I heard from Bill, not all of them show up, 5 students on it, and they don't all show up every time. Is that correct? Is that factually correct? Okay, so that seems to me that shows a little less than full student interest. If they're interested, they should show up. That's step one. So adding a sixth who also doesn't show up doesn't seem to make much difference in the voting pattern from my point of view. I am happy to support the students having a sixth voice if they're willing to use it. Now, the other question, I guess, is there something about an ASUO person who actually would show up? Is that the issue, or am I missing something there? But I would also say I can understand Interim President Berdahl's view of don't be, lighting various stoves and then leaving the house later, right? Not knowing how this will blow up or not. I would just say if the students really care about this, then they should be showing up every time, right? I think most of us have other things we'd rather do too, but we decide this is important and we're going to make it happen. So I'm not sure how adding a sixth voice, if the existing 5 don't show up, that may just need a point of clarification. I may have totally wrong, but I'll leave it there. So I would sort of go with John, which is keep our powder dry for more important.
Yeah, yes. Oh, I think Glen was next, and then I think your hand, and then is Ben standing up again? Then Ben again. Okay.
I don't know if this constitutes
Please.
Next, or I was just going to actually respond to that.
Okay, please.
I think you're probably not the only one in the room with maybe that question. I don't want to unpack it on behalf of Ben. Ben's going to probably speak to it, but I can certainly suggest that one of the reasons for what you're receiving as a lack of participation is just scheduling. In particular, our student athletes are kept very busy, so it's not a guarantee that our student athlete is going to be present. He's not been present at all IAC meetings. Pardon me? Yeah. No, I think the issue is not really lack of interest, as my impression. It's more a scheduling thing. 3 to 5 is the time, but the day of the week is whenever we can get it with the athletic director. Last year at this time, there was a vote held for the IAC president, and there was not a single student available for that vote. So I think while I'm guessing there are people who would share the sentiment, it's not, I think, an accurate perception that there's a lack of interest. It's more just scheduling, I think, is my impression. Well, yes, scheduling is actual topic of conversation. I mean, we spend a lot of time in the committee on academic versus athletic scheduling and the implications of baseball schedules and whatnot on student athlete performance. That's, I think, within the purview of the committee. That's something we spent time on. And it is true that we actually deal with scheduling ourselves, just in getting people to attend the meetings.
And yes, please.
My name is Shabd Khalsa. I was the Athletic Contract Finance Committee executive appointee for the ASUO, and I'm actually here to present to you a little later on student conduct. I take issue with that. I sat on the Student Conduct and Community Standards Committee. All of our students were present at every single meeting, and none of our faculty were present at any of our meetings except for the first one. So I'd like to just point that out. And secondly, just to point out the magnitude of what IAC works with is a big deal. There's a lot of money flowing in and out of that, and that's something that I absolutely think students should have more of a voice in. So I encourage you to vote in favor.
Well, there's one thing we can agree on. IAC has been and continues to be controversial in various ways, and other things as well. There is controversy around these issues. So it's good that we're having this discussion. We do need to have it and try to move forward. Does anybody have any other? I think, Alessandra, did you? Oh, after Ben? Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to address that issue too. It certainly is not due to any lack of interest. I would also point out that there's not a single stakeholder group on a committee as large as the IAC that is 100% present in every meeting. The student members have made a good faith effort along with all the other IAC members, to attend as many meetings as possible, and most meetings have several of the student representatives attending those meetings, and from time to time, one or two of those students may not be able to attend. The same is true of the faculty members as well, and the staff members. It's not exclusive to students. I would also point out for everybody in the room that all of the student members of University Senate are here today, and the same could not be said of faculty, but certainly that would not be an argument for reducing the faculty representation on University Senate. So if the issue is why students aren't attending every single meeting, I think it is a scheduling issue, and it's not exclusive to the student members of the committee. We've had a very active student contingent, and I believe that the members of the IAC who are faculty could attest to that.
Hello, my name is Alexandra Flores Quilty. I'm a senator, and I'm also an ASU senator, and I sit on several student faculty committees here on campus. One thing I would want to point out is that all of the students I work with, all of my colleagues within the ASUO and other student groups on campus are all very committed and qualified students that are really invested in everything they put themselves into. And I respect them tremendously in the work they do, especially a lot of the students on IAC. Molly Bacon, just one of them. But also I would like to point out that as students, college is very expensive, and a lot of us work part-time jobs, and scheduling is really, really difficult when you're trying to balance extracurricular activities, schoolwork, and all the various activities. But we're committed to this university, and we're invested in the success of this university, and that's why I personally sit on extra committees. I do all this extra work because I'm invested in this university. And that's not to say that any other stakeholder in this university is not, by any means at all. But we students do spread ourselves pretty thin that serve in these committees and everything. And I know all the members of IAC, the students on there, it's not because their lack of interest or that they don't wish to be there, but it's because that they have a lot of other commitments as well, and that they can't be at this university if they're not working, if they can't pay to be here, and that's an issue. I just want to point that out, and it's not because of a lack of interest or commitment to the charge that they have.
Let me try to get the train back on the tracks here. I did not at all accuse students of not being interested or committed to anything. We were talking about the interagency committee, or the athletic committee, not about all committees. I am very, very sensitive to all of the work that the students do, and this university runs because of what students do. So I'm not casting aspersions on all student committees or anything like that. So I just want to really be clear about that. This is about one thing where you're asking for another student on it, and somebody said on that committee, people don't show up. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying I'm not sure how getting and it was said that there was a voice needed to be heard. But if the voice, I'm not sure how a sixth person who for very good and valid, totally great reasons can't show up, solve this problem. That's the only thing I was pointing out. But I really want to be clear that the students are doing great stuff here, so let's keep it about the issue at hand. I'm not suggesting at all that students don't work and make this university run. So I just want to be clear, at least when people are saying that I was casting aspersions on what students do here, I'll get defensive about it, because that was misinterpreting what I said. Completely.
Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, thanks for clarifying. Please identify yourself, please.
Chris Sinclair, Mathematics. I think the main point here is actually that we have a president who has a very good reason for suggesting that we put this off. And it doesn't seem like this is that important to be done while we have an interim president. I mean, if we have a new president in 6 months, let's do it in 6 months. But we have a president here who's working very hard, and he has a reason for not wanting to do this. And it has nothing to do with the particulars of this committee. It has nothing to do with anything, I think. I think it just is a general position that let's keep things just the way they're going until we have someone here permanently. And I think that we should respect that. So
we can vote. The motion has been put back on the table because the Committee on Committees referred it back. We don't need a second, correct? We can vote now since it has been parliamentarian. We can vote without a second because it's been put back. I just want to make sure. So all in favor, say aye. Let me read the motion once more. I really should do that just so everybody knows exactly. The Senate moves to add the ASUO president or designee as an ex officio voting member of the IAC effective immediately. That's the literal wording. which is also on the Senate website. Yes? Yes. No. No. No, it will become part of the 10th year review process. Yeah, absolutely. And that was always the case, and I presented that just so everybody knows that was made clear from the beginning. So all in favor of this motion, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Well, we're going to have a hand vote. Here we go, and we will count carefully. All in favor, aye.
Seven. Yes, seven?
Yes. We need, for purposes of history, to do an exact count, and we'll also ask for abstentions. All opposed, nay. I have 18 as well. And abstain? Could I see big hands, please? Hold them high. 1, 2, 3, I believe. Yes, 3. So the final count is the ayes 7, nays 18, and abstain 3. Therefore, the motion is voted down, and it will become part of the 10th year review process. Not the motion, but any issue that the IAC wishes to introduce into the process of the 10th year review, that will go before the Committee on Committees. Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you. And I want to thank our president for being here and for presenting his views, because this is very helpful both in the policy-making part of the meeting and then also now in this discussion. And we have some other issues where we really need him to be here to discuss these matters. Thank you so much. Next is the student code. Shabd Khalsa will be presenting I guess it's some changes that are being asked for us to review and approve today.
Good afternoon. I'd like to propose a few changes, both logistical and more substantive, to the Student Conduct and Community Standards Code. First, with logistical changes, we'd simply like to change advisor with ER to advisor with OR throughout the code to make spelling consistent, because that's an issue. And we'd like to change the language, the Student Conduct Hearings Panel, change University Affairs Director, that's a position, to the ASUO officer designated to coordinate university affairs. So those are both pretty straightforward. More substantive changes would be around, we'd like to add the language, the student's rights to copies of their case files to the extent allowed by law, and other documents pertaining to the allegations against them. So the committee voted to add this so that students that receive allegations of misconduct are informed of the right that they already have to receive a copy of their case files. The right already exists, but students are often not informed of it, or not informed of it and not aware of it, in notices of allegations of misconduct. By adding this provision to the code, students will be more capable of navigating the process on their own. And we think it's a common sense addition because all it does is inform students about their rights. Another change would be regarding university hearings, panel hearings, so that it states, advisors are permitted to speak or participate directly in any hearing if the student they are assisting so chooses, including one or more of the following, in one or more of the following specific ways. An advisor may speak on behalf of the students they are representing during conduct proceedings if said student so chooses. And this change levels the playing field for all students with allegations of misconduct against them. For example, a student in the law school may be better prepared to speak on their own behalf versus a student who speaks English as a second language or does not have the same preparation for speaking in front of that are being in those types of legal proceedings. And by allowing students to have advisors speak on their behalf, the process is more fair to students who are less articulate or uncomfortable with public speaking or are less familiar with legal proceedings. Additionally, this prevents more complicated legal concepts from being lost in translation. Under current rules, an advisor may not explain how a certain action may or may not be protected under the First Amendment. Instead, they have to explain it to the student who subsequently has to say it back to the hearings panel. This may cause important details to be lost in translation and prevent decision makers from having the information necessary to correctly determine whether or not a student has violated the conduct code. For these reasons, in the last ASUO election, more than 86% of students voted that they want students to be able to choose to have an advisor to speak on their behalf. Those are the changes that this year's conduct committee has created, and at this point, I'll take any questions.
Anybody have any questions or comments?
Yep.
Please. This is Randy Sullivan, Chemistry.
On your thing about the student shall be advised of their right to records, who shall advise them?
The Student Conduct and Community Standards,
Is
the
that
the Office of Student Conduct, essentially, so that when a student is informed that they've made an infraction, included in the material that they receive, there will be just a simple thing stating.
Is that in the text of your revision, that those are the people responsible for doing it?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Please, Marie.
Marie Vituli, Professor Emerita of Mathematics. Is there something written that we can look at to
I understood that there would be
digest it while you're speaking? 'Cause
yeah, I
certainly
apologize.
can't digest it just from hearing it.
As I understood, there were to be slides presented along with this that were sent to Chris Prosser.
Chris, do you have those? Were they sent?
I think they're in my email.
Ah, well then we'd better get them from your email.
My apologies. Should have mentioned that.
As we're waiting, does anybody else have any question or no comment? Oh, please, Sue, and then Marie.
Sue Eblin, University Registrar. I was under the understanding that the Student Conduct Code was a state OAR. And are these changes that you're suggesting be made to the OAR? And if so, that's quite a lengthy process, and just wanted to know how that, or if this just, you know, what are you proposing to change here?
Yes, these are changes. I didn't read the attached codes because I didn't want to bore everyone to death. But yes, it would amend that.
So what you are doing is you're asking the Senate to approve changes that then will go into the OAR process.
Correct.
For change, which is lengthy and I believe complicated. Is that correct? Sue is shaking her hand as shaking her head as registrar. Yes, Marie.
Well, there was lengthy time. There was a lot of outreach to the faculty members, both by email and phone call, and we gave them lots of time to respond, and we received no input. And that's why we're submitting this to you to receive faculty input on this now, because we value that, but we felt that these were important changes that needed to be presented to you.
So really what you're saying is you know that the OAR process is quite an involved one, but you're asking us in a way to help you to move forward with it.
That's correct.
Okay. Let's take a look at what's on the screen and move along here. So if we look under E, there you can see what has been changed is marked in red. And then F below it. So small letter E and then large F. And as we move along, the second page, capital A. Okay. Yes. I think Harlan and then Peter.
I move to approve the changes to the student conduct code as written.
Okay. Peter?
Is this working? This wasn't working. Peter Keyes, Architecture. I'm a little confused by the process here, having not seen any of this before. It's really complicated. As Senate President, when we did this revision to the Student Conduct Code 6 years ago after an 11-year process, I find it a little weird to try to make actually what are substantive changes to this when we haven't seen the language and had a chance to consider it, and particularly with what you're saying about how the committee process has been working. So I'd suggest we table this motion and maybe have the text available and be able to have a more extended and reasonable discussion of these changes and to what they actually mean, rather than just acting
Yeah, I think that it's clear that the process is more involved, so I'm asking our parliamentarian about that. Are you moving to table it? He is. So we may proceed to a vote about, pardon, or after discussion.
I'm bothered by the process. I'm also bothered by not having, it sounds like the administration hasn't weighed in or hasn't been invited to weigh in. I don't know. If I'm correct, shared governance would suggest that we should know, was this presented to them whether or not people, yes, and they said what?
Carl Ye was present at our...
Pardon me?
Carl Ye, who is the, what's his exact position? That's right. So he was at every meeting.
And he signed off on these changes?
No, he did not.
He did not.
He did not. So the administration does not agree with the changes. The students have proposed it. Nobody else showed up at the meeting, and I agree that we should table it for the time being.
Great. The students, of course, have the right to ask that the Senate consider it, and that's what we're voting on at this point, the motion to table it, correct? Our parliamentarian? Yes. All in favor of tabling this motion, please say aye. All opposed, nay. Ayes have it, and we now move forward. It will be tabled, and we need to go through a process. It's clear that people are indicating that that needs to happen, and maybe when we come back with it at the appropriate time, that process needs to be delineated out front, and then we need to have a clear sense of it. And some others who are involved in the OAR making process need to be involved. So let's talk about that and try to find a way to move forward. Thank you so much.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks. Next is the motion US 11/12-9, acknowledging the Constitution. Frank Stahl, Emeritus Biology.
To facilitate effective shared governance, a constitution was created. It's a document that maximizes the influence that the faculty and the rest of the university community can have on important decisions on this campus. I find frequently, somewhat to my dismay, that there are many folks who have yet to read it, and some of these folks even seem to be involved in positions high in the administration. I won't name any names, of course. In order that people who take positions here, be they on the faculty or administrative positions, be aware of the importance of this Constitution in guiding the process of faculty governance. This should be drawn to their attention as part of their job description. It just takes a few words. And so I introduce the following resolution as a motion to the President. The Senate calls upon the President to advise all Vice Presidents, Deans, Department Heads, and Directors to include, from this date forward, the following statement on all job descriptions. Quote, academic and administrative functions at the University of Oregon are fulfilled within a valued tradition of shared governance as specified by state law and the University of Oregon Constitution. And then I give in parentheses the URL by which that Constitution can be accessed, close quote. I move that we adopt, that the Senate, I can't say we, I'm not a senator, I move that the Senate adopt that resolution, and I hope I get a second to my motion.
Second? Anybody? Second. So now discussion?
Since the President
yes, please, using the microphone.
Yes, since the President may or may not choose to act on a resolution, and since the President is here, I'd like him, please, to take the opportunity to let us know whether he will, in fact, act on this resolution as requested.
Well, let me just say, Frank, that there may be administrators who aren't aware of some of the points in the Constitution, and I would suggest there are also people in the Senate who may not be fully aware of the division of powers within that are defined in the Constitution. I think this is a fine idea. I have no objection to it. I think that we should do it. It is a governing document of shared governance at the university, and people who join the faculty should be apprised of that fact.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Great. Any? Okay, ready to vote. So all in favor, aye. Opposed, nay. Abstain. Okay, the motion is passed. Thank you. Now we move quickly on to the open discussion, which is an update on unionization. Peter Keyes, member of the University of Oregon Faculty Union Coordinating Committee and former President of the Senate.
Hi, thanks. I'm changing my Senate hat or toga, I guess, here to put on my union cap at this point. I just wanted to update you on what's going on with the unionization process. As you know, the Union Organizing Committee filed almost 1,200 cards, whenever that was, back in March or something. Went to the State Employment Relations Board. The university filed objections to it. We responded to those, and then basically the universities and the systems lawyers and the union's lawyers started talking and worked out an agreement as on various questions such as who would be in the bargaining unit and how decisions like that would be made. So, and we've been hearing a lot recently from people saying, so what's happening and what are you doing and what's our position on this and why aren't we doing everything? And we're just changing gears, okay? We were not expecting to have this kind of agreement this quickly, and so we were prepared for a legal battle that could have lasted a year or more based upon other states where we've seen such a thing. And so we're at this point thinking what we're going forward with, and I'm just going to briefly tell you today where we are and what kind of outreach we're doing and how we'd like everyone on campus to participate in this. So first of all, our first newsletter has just hit the stands this afternoon. I guess a lot of people got it email or it's available on the union website, and it lays out a statement of where we are and what we're doing, a little more detail than I can go into here. So second, we're going to have a sort of a survey to all people in the bargaining unit, similar to the one we conducted a month or two ago before cards were filed, sort of really trying to ascertain what the issues are people in the bargaining unit are interested in and want us to pursue. Third, we've started and we're going to continue having a series of departmental or unit meetings. So chances for anyone in the bargaining unit to get together with people from the organizing committee to raise the issues and concerns they have that they'd like the union to address. And we're scheduling those. We'd like to have those with every unit if possible by the end of spring term. So please, if you'd like, if no one's contacted you or you haven't heard about this from someone in the organizing committee, please feel free to contact any of us to say you'd like to have a meeting dealing with this. We're all looking for people who want to get involved. A lot of people that we talked to during the process of card check were not necessarily in favor of a union, but felt that if there were going to be a union, they would like to be involved at that point, and we'd like to encourage this. This is going to represent, over 1,800 people, and we'd like to have as broad a representation in different departments and different ranks and everything as we can. We're going to be forming working groups. There's an awful lot of things to start figuring out. So we're looking for working groups that'll be people from the organizing committee and anyone else. So if there's particular issues that you have interest in researching and looking at how things are dealt with at other universities, at making policy proposals for the union to consider, we're welcoming people to join these committees at this point, these groups. They will start forming in the spring and hopefully working through the summer. There's something that's going to be called a bargaining caucus, and that's a group that's going to be more or less the chairs of the different working groups. So as we start coming up with policy proposals or ideas, we'd like to coordinate them and have a wider discussion as to what kind of positions the union would be taking. So that's what we're all trying to do this spring and into the summer. As we know, there will be obviously a hiatus and a lot of activity on this during the summer. And when we come back in the fall, there will be a membership drive. Right now, if you signed a card, it does not mean you were a member of the union. There was no union to join back then. So the State Employment and Relations Board has certified the union, but then anyone who wants to be a member of the union has to sign a form saying, I am joining the union. So right now, there are 0 members of this union. We're not pushing forward with trying. We could. Probably about 5 of us could all decide to quickly join the union and vote ourselves in as officers and make all these policies if we wanted to, but we don't want to do that. We want to have as broad a representation as possible. We were expecting maybe a coup and Nathan would come back and try to take over the union or something quickly, but we're not going to let that happen. So we're going to have a membership drive. Nathan, you listening to this in Italy? A shout out to Nathan here. We're going to have a membership drive in the fall. Where we're going to be trying to solicit people who join the union. Will have a say, will have a vote in all the union policies and positions and election of members. Also, maybe starting in the summer, but certainly in the fall, a committee will be looking at bylaws and constitution for the union, so we'll have proposals on the table so that when we have a membership, people can be voting on those bylaws and the Constitution. And then finally, some point in the fall, we think after positions have been worked out from the bargaining caucus and from the working groups, will be trying to form what we consider a bargaining team, and we don't know how big that would be or how many people, and these would be the individuals who would be sitting down with the administration and trying to hammer out a contract at that point. So I'd probably just like to stop there and just answer any questions.
Yes, please, any questions? Bob.
Am I to infer from this that the union is not willing to enter into contract bargaining talks until fall?
I think that is correct, yes.
Well, that's very interesting because I thought this was a pretty urgent matter in your minds. And I am surprised to learn that you want to postpone bargaining until fall. You want to give does the union only work 9 months of the year? Is that it? Or
Well, I mean, as I alluded to, none of us expected to be in this position this quickly. We, based upon the university administration's response to the card check, we thought this was going to be a year off in the future.
I see. So you were really expecting litigation then?
Well, once we saw
anticipating it, and
once we saw the union, the administration's response, we expected a lot of litigation. Yes, and the other thing is that we don't really have a union. Okay, we have an organizing committee at this point, which is a self-selected group of people who've been involved in the card check process, and we'd like to think of the union as being broadly representative of everyone in the bargain unit and get a lot more people involved and hear the issues they want to have us negotiating on.
Well, I would just simply say from the standpoint of the university, We hope to begin bargaining well before fall.
I don't think it's going to happen on our side.
So the union isn't going to be accommodating in that sense, you're telling me?
I don't see how we could be. To be honest, I don't see how we could, but I don't see how we could start negotiating when we really don't feel we have a handle on what the issues are that the bargaining unit members are interested in.
It seems to me maybe you put the cart before the horse in organizing a drive to unionize before you knew what the issues were that you were going to bargain.
It's always a chicken and the egg issue. I mean, if we were making positions as to what we were arguing, want to bargain for, but who were we to be coming up with those positions when we didn't really have a union? So I don't know how we could have done it any differently, and I certainly don't think that changes where we are.
I just find it very surprising that the union is having driven this in a very short period of time and having urged people to sign the cards in a 90-day period, then to postpone from that 90-day period the beginning of bargaining for another 6 months seems to me to be just a very ungainly problem.
I would perhaps recall your own words and say that the status quo is maybe not such a bad thing.
That you could have done before you signed the card.
Well, there's no need for us to have accomplished this in the next 6 months. I believe, I am not aware of all the legalities of this. I think we have a year from when the union is certified to sort of get the union membership together, solidify our positions, and enter negotiations. So I would much prefer us to slow down and think about what we're doing and come up with well-considered positions rather than rushing into something.
Yes.
Yeah. That's right.
Great. Glen.
It's my understanding that the membership drive is expected in the fall. So bargaining would be sometime subsequent to the membership being formed. How long is that membership drive itself?
I don't know that it has. People can join the union anytime they want. I mean, I think it might be possible for people to join earlier. If you wanted to sign up this summer, that could happen. I think there'll be a concerted, get out the membership drive type thing, and at a certain point we would just say whoever is in at this point is in. But people could continue to join anytime they wanted to after that. It's not a fixed period.
So you're saying that bargaining would take place fall at the earliest?
Yes,
apparently.
I think that's true. Yes. By the way, maybe some of the unwieldiness of some of the positions here is because, contrary to some of the rumors that have floated around, the union doesn't have a small Politburo that's making all these decisions. It really is the organizing committee is broad-based. There's not even a regular chair. It rotates through the membership. All the decisions that have been made by the whole organizing committee. So in Oregon, where process is our greatest product, this necessarily slows down the process a little bit. So.
I just have a question because, of course, the Senate, as you know, has been a good partner in the sense of wanting to inform the community, inviting you here, of course, and we had in November a session devoted to getting some information out to our entire university community, and then we had the open dialogue in February. But I want to make sure that we're doing the appropriate thing. We're sometimes not sure who to approach since it is a rotating chair. And it would be nice if perhaps there could be a liaison to the Senate so we could have some vehicle for communication. I don't know if, for example, Yana Carroll, I know she's the national representative, but we're not always sure who to talk with. And since we want to make sure that we're serving everyone, of all 5 constituencies, it's important for us to know how to do that in regard to the union.
Right, and I think that's a great idea, and I think maybe what we do is look at the Senate roster for next year, and maybe any senators who are also members of the organizing committee or something could be easily designated as a liaison.
Yeah, well, it would be somebody who, it should be somebody who we can have a definite connection with prior to the election of, I think it's chair, right, of the committee? organizing committee will be a chair or president? What do you?
Well, I think we can, once we have the Senate election and we can see who's here in the Senate next year,
Right.
maybe the union could just, the organizing committee say this could be a liaison to the Senate.
Okay, but eventually you'll elect a chair or a president. There'll be one in the new.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I think
eventually.
that person has to have a direct contact to the president of the Senate.
Yep.
And then also a liaison would be great. So that would be helpful. If we could have a liaison from your side until that, maybe it's even you, I don't know.
Yep.
But
For
just
a
if we
couple
could,
more weeks.
Yeah, if we could formalize it, that'd be great, because there will be things that come up over the summer as well. So thanks so much. Any other questions or comments?
One more question of information. When does the union, is it after a contract or prior to a contract that the union starts essentially, what's the process for
Collective
collecting
bargaining?
dues and
I've heard that's after the first contract is signed.
after the first
Yes.
contract? That's good.
Great. I'm sorry that we are going to have to extend the meeting. May I hear a motion to extend for 25 minutes maximum? Second? Second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. Thank you. We'll move forward. The next is thank you so much, Peter. Really appreciate your coming here today and helping us to understand and for the update. And we'll also invite the union next time as well. It's important to us to be informed. Now the reports. ASUO report from Ben Eckstein, President.
So I have a few brief updates that are worth noting. The ASUO has been running a major voter registration, education, and Get Out the Vote campaign. First of all, thanks to any faculty who have supported these efforts. We have made class announcements in hundreds of classes across the university, and those efforts were very successful. We registered 2,661 students to vote for the upcoming primary election. That's part of a goal to register 10,000 students by the general election. 2,661 is the highest number that we've ever hit on this campus for a spring primary election, and it was the highest number in the state on any public university campus. So we're very proud of that. And it was a large effort, and now there's a voter education campaign that's already reached thousands of students on campus, giving them information on all of the races in the upcoming election. We also completed our total incidental fee budget last month for the next year. Our incidental fee budget is around $13 million total. And one note about that budget, we did negotiate an agreement with the athletic department of $0 in growth, and so it will actually be students will be paying the lowest cost for our athletic ticket program that they've paid in the last 10 years. For the first time in a decade, students will pay less than 50% of the fair market value for our football and basketball ticket program, and that was a large point of negotiation within our budget, and will save students a couple hundred thousand of dollars next year. There also is a transition right now in our student government. The ASUO elections did take place, and so incoming officers are preparing to take their offices. Laura Hinman is a student senator, a colleague of mine, and a good friend, and she's been elected the student body president, so she will take office May 25th, and I imagine she'll be at the next University Senate meeting. I know that Rob has already invited her, and I'm meeting with her regularly and helping to pass off a lot of the relationships and work that's being done right now. Students also voted for the second time this year that they wanted a more affordable student union project. This was the second time that students were asked to vote. They were asked to vote last year in the fall on a $100 per term fee. A $65 per term fee, and they voted it down. They were asked this time around to vote on a $100 per term fee, and we believe that was moving in the wrong direction based on the results of the last vote, and predictably they turned it down again, and they also voted overwhelmingly that they would like the Division of Student Affairs to pursue a more affordable project and a more student-centered approach in planning the project. So I hope that that bears out in future planning for the project. And then finally, the ASUO did take a stance against a proposed piece of municipal legislation called the Social Host Ordinance, which takes a lot longer than a brief update to explain, but I'm happy to update anyone on the details. But it was a piece of legislation on a local level that was proposed that would have imposed very strict fines and penalties on students, not just students actually, any community members who were engaging in what was deemed to be an unruly gathering, but the definitions in the ordinance were very broad, the fines were very strict, and student leaders across campus did form a coalition to oppose that ordinance, and the city council by and large agreed with the concerns that students had and did not move it forward to a public hearing at this time and are revisiting a lot of the language based on student concerns. So that was a large effort in the last month and a half. Students met with Mayor Piercy, met with city councilors, testified at public hearings, and we were relieved that that legislation will not move forward, at least in its current form. So those are my updates.
Thanks so much, Ben. And next is the update on a change in practice regarding public records. And this will be presented by Bill Harbaugh, who's the chair of the Senate Transparency Committee.
So I'll be very brief. So essentially what happened, you know the basics of this, back in 2010, there were reporters making public records requests to the athletic department for copies of Mike Bellotti's contract. The general counsel's office stalled those requests for about 9 months. As a result of that, the university had to pay out several millions of dollars, and the general counsel, who was investigated by the Department of Justice and found responsible for that, was reassigned by President LaRiviere. In September of 2011, after the U of O Senate had voted to set up a Senate Transparency Committee that would try to prevent things like this from happening again, after many months of negotiations with Dave Hubin and with others from the administration, President LaRiviere agreed to a policy, or a practice, I'm supposed to call it, that would grant $200 fee waivers from people who were requesting documents from the university and had a reasonable public interest in making these things public. So, for example, journalists or bloggers. That policy, from the perspective, I think, of everyone involved, worked very, very well. This May, it was changed without any notice to the Senate or the Senate Transparency Committee whatsoever. The fee waiver was revoked. That was, from my perspective, a substantial change in the way the university has tried to deal with transparency issues and the way the university has tried to build trust. And that was a change that was implemented, according to my understanding, by President Berdahl and General Counsel Geller. At this point, I think the next steps are for the Transparency Committee to try to understand why this change was made, and then we'll come back to the Senate with some suggestions for how to deal with this situation.
Just a second, Bill, I think there are some questions or comments, please. Please, I'm sorry, may I see the hands? Who would like to speak? Did I see Dave Hubin, Bob Berdahl? Bob? Dave?
You can show the emails that were exchanged.
I will be quick. Bill is absolutely right that we needed in 2010 a major reform and revision in how we approached public records at this campus. Before the formation of a public records office, our average time on completion of public records requests, our average time was 70 days. That's completely unacceptable. Now the average time of our Office of Public Records is right around 7 days. It's fluctuated up and down, but it's running around 7 days. We aspire to be as efficient as possible. I'd like to attribute the change, the positive movement in public records, to Liz Deneke and Lisa Thornton, who have coordinated that office and report to me. When Richard LaRiviere asked me last July to directly supervise the Office of Public Records, we discussed 4 particular goals, and one was to shorten even further our turnaround time on requests. Second was to introduce a visible log of requests so that the public could see when something was requested, what it was, and how long it took us to respond. And we may even move, we have not finalized this, but we may move to actually putting the documents that were provided more frequently up on the web. And that relates to a third goal that Richard and I discussed and that President Berdahl has emphatically endorsed, and that's to enlarge and make more accessible the public records library so that those documents, those materials that are frequently requested or that we could have predicted would be requested are up there already. And then a fourth, last but very important goal was to find a way to efficiently handle simple requests so that they could be expedited. Today, what we're discussing and what Bill is referring to is a refinement on that last point on the way in which our office, our practice, would handle simple requests. Last September, we tried an approach where we waived